Welcome to ASD Shine Bright, the podcast. It's the back to school edition. I'm Corey Young. Hope you guys have had an awesome summer. We're here in the superintendent's office where we have a special podcast. We have our special guest, Suzie Peterson, incoming 7th grader from Romig Middle School. Suzie, take it away.
Thank you. So I just have a couple questions, if that's all right. Okay, great. What are you most excited about for the new school year?
That's a great question, Suzie. So this is going to be my 3rd year as the superintendent, and for the past 2 years, we've been working on some big changes in ASD. The first will be our change of school start times, so I'm excited for that to happen. We changed the school start times because we feel that it'll set up our students for success. There's been a lot of research done on the impact of start times on mental health and well-being for older students, so excited about that. We'll be moving our 6th graders up to our middle school buildings, and we're also launching an exciting initiative called the Academies of Anchorage. So we've been doing a lot of planning for 2 years, and this upcoming school year is where the rubber meets the road.
That sounds great. I'm going to be at middle school at Romig next year, starting 7th grade. What advice would you give to me and my fellow students?
That's a great question. So I used to be a 9th grade geometry teacher, and what I learned in that position is that 9th grade, and I would say 6th and 7th grade, are really special times in your career because really those are the years to reinvent yourself or to try something new. So really take advantage of your first year in middle school. Don't be afraid to think outside the box, try different classes that maybe you haven't thought about before. I think back to even my own middle school experience. I wasn't really sure what electives to take. There's so many more elective options in a middle school versus an elementary. So what I did when I was your age was I took theater arts for the first time because I didn't know what that was all about. And actually, when I took theater arts, I learned a lot of skills that are applicable to being a superintendent. You learn about communication, you learn about thinking about somebody else's perspective, just a lot of great qualities, learning how to memorize things. You have to memorize scripts, so when you have to memorize lots of facts, it was just amazing. And I would have never learned all those skills if I hadn't have pushed myself out of my comfort zone. So whether that's a new class, you have to remember that schools are both about learning in the classroom but also outside. If I recall, you'll be attending Romig Middle School. So Romig is a really special building where one, you'll have access to the high school building, you'll get to see the high schoolers doing their thing, and then of course on the Romig campus, you'll have access to great classes, but also great extracurricular activities too. They have everything from Dungeons and Dragons Club to sports and activities. So really take advantage of that because the things you discover in middle school could completely impact your life in a positive way.
When you were in middle school, what was your favorite class?
Let me give that one a little thought. When I was in middle school, one of the special things was I had the same English teacher for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and I had her for both reading and literature. We had basically a writing class and a reading class. So I had her double the time of all my other teachers. Her name was Miss Ritz, really amazing. I guess one, I spent a lot of time with her, but two, she was just a really great teacher because one, she was a great English teacher, but she was also a really great role model. She taught me a lot about different types of music. She was really into meditation. She taught me meditation strategies with all of my classmates. And I remember distinctly, I was trying to pass some sort of test. I forget what it was. And in confidence, I let Miss Ritz know, I have a lot of testing anxiety. Every time there's a test, I get really nervous. And even if I know the material, it just all evaporates from my brain. So she volunteered for me to go into her classroom an hour early once a week, and she would teach me various strategies to get out of my head and to really remind myself that I have the knowledge, I just need to not be so nervous. And that meant a lot to me, and those strategies really took me a long way, and I was able to really thrive as a result of her. And of course, I learned a lot about English and reading and writing too, and I think the last thing I'll say about Miss Ritz was I always thought of myself more as a math kind of guy, math and science. So English, I was never really that interested in it. I just didn't think that was me. and I never really thought of myself as creative, but my teacher really pushed my thinking in that area. And I remember one time she would give all of the students one-on-one time to go over their essay feedback. And one time she was grading my essay in front of me, and I still remember this, and it's been many, many years since I've been in middle school. And she said, "Jharrett, you can paint a picture with words." And I've never forgotten those words, even today, because I'm really bad at drawing, and I'm really bad at a lot of creative ventures. And when she said that, you can write books if you want to, you can do anything you want to when it comes to writing, I believed her. And then from there, I took more reading classes. I really embraced myself as a writer. I would do this nerdy thing where I'd go online and write fictional stories about my favorite cartoon characters and that sort of thing. So I really cultivated my own talent for writing, and it's something that I do every day as a superintendent. I probably do a lot of writing in my job that most people don't realize. So in any case, I couldn't have gotten there without Miss Ritz. And for example, I went to graduate school, and at the end of graduate school, you have to do this thing called writing a dissertation. And a dissertation is basically like a 300-page book you have to write in order for you to get your graduate degree. You can kind of see my graduate degree back there. And I actually went so far as to dedicate my dissertation to Miss Ritz, because I kept on thinking back to what she told me, which is, you can really use your creativity to, paint a picture with words. So I did it, and I couldn't have finished grad school without her. I think I actually emailed her after I became Dr. Bryantt when I got my doctorate degree, because she played a pivotal role in that.
At what point in your life did you decide you wanted to be a teacher, and at what point in your teaching did you decide you wanted to run for superintendent?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've always been interested in the idea of teaching, I think as early as high school. I remember that I was really good at math, and physics was my favorite subject in high school. And I would actually go to school pretty early. So my high school, just as an aside, we had late start times because our school board way back in the day had done the same research that we're doing here in ASD. So when I was a high school student, I went to school at 9 a.m. So that's pretty late for high school. And I would actually get to school at about 8 a.m. so I could tutor my peers in physics. So I would do that, and I'd even get in front of the whiteboard and get my dry erase marker and solve all these problems for my friends to help them succeed in physics. And I started doing it 2, 3, 4 times a week, and I thought to myself, maybe one day I can be a physics teacher. There would be certain days where my physics teacher would let me kind of show my style of solving a problem, even during the class time. So I think at that point there was a seed planted in my head that I should think about it. I went to college with an open mind. I wasn't entirely sure what I wanted to do. I thought maybe I'd go to medical school. A part of me was really interested in scientific research in the chemistry realm. But then I started taking this one class that was all about urban education, so teaching and learning in the big city environment, because there are very specific challenges in that type of work. And I was so fascinated by it. I hadn't realized how complicated the education sector is, and how many challenges there are for students and families, especially in communities where there's a lot of diversity and a lot of different perspectives, and teachers are tasked with figuring out how to personalize learning for every single student in the class. And at that point, I took it upon myself to apply to be a teacher. So my first job out of college was being a high school math teacher. I taught geometry, so I went back to my roots of math and science. I always thought that was something I was passionate about, and I had a really great experience. I taught in Houston, Texas, in a great school environment. I learned a lot. And then from that point, I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do afterwards. There was some opportunities I thought about where I could be a calculus teacher. There was a really neat opportunity that I thought about where there were these 6th and 7th graders that were 2 or 3 grade levels ahead in math, so they needed a teacher to help teach them along to where they could take calculus by 9th or 10th grade. So anyway, I thought about that. I ended up becoming a college counselor instead, because I was really interested and passionate about helping connect high school kids to their next step, whether that's a college, whether that's a high-wage job, or additional training. I loved working with those seniors so they could be successful in life. And then I didn't think about being a superintendent for many years after that. It wasn't until I took on other leadership roles, I met a couple of very fascinating superintendents who took me under their wing. To make a very long story short, this is a short podcast, so I'm going to give you the short version. But a couple of talented superintendents took me under their wing, and they kind of helped me figure out my career. And it was those superintendents, and again, I was just a college counselor. I wasn't anybody high profile in the district, but my mentors helped me decide to go to graduate school. They helped me apply. I got my master's degree, I got my doctorate degree. When different jobs became available, they let me know about them so I could apply. And there were a couple of jobs where I wasn't even sure if I was ready for it, but they pushed me and they said, no, you need to put yourself out there, put your best foot forward, this is how you'll do it. And I ended up becoming an assistant superintendent pretty quickly. And then I had just finished my doctorate, and I went on to work for a few other superintendents, took on other great roles, and then COVID happened, and it really turned everything upside down, as you probably remember. You know, we were out of school, we were really figuring out how to make this remote learning thing work. And a lot of changes happened in the world, in the country, and I had realized a new passion that I had for recruiting talent. And in the post-pandemic world, what we're seeing a lot is labor shortages. So it's hard to hire teachers, it's hard to hire bus drivers. We have all these challenges, and in any case, I made a pitch to my superintendent at that point. And I said, hey, I have a few ideas for how we can recruit more teachers, how we can fully staff our bus drivers, and how we can really be a premier urban district. This is in Houston. And he trusted me to take on that job, and I was very proud of that work that I did for him. And yeah, next thing you know, a lot of those superintendents from 10 years prior came back in. They gave me some phone calls and they said, hey, Dr. Bryantt, you're not going to believe it, but I think you're ready to lead your own district. It's time for you to branch out. And I was a little scared at first, but I think when you have mentors for that long, you have to believe them when they tell you things like that and take a leap of faith. Go outside your comfort zone. So that's what I did, and it's really hard to become a superintendent. And it's really hard work too once you're in the job. But I took their advice, I put myself out there, and I still wasn't exactly sure, what it would be like. Being a superintendent is a very complicated job, but I knew that I wanted to make a difference. And I knew that in a post-pandemic world, that there are new challenges on superintendents that many didn't anticipate when they got into this work. So I wanted to be one of the first superintendents to raise their hand up and say, I want to help because I'm ready for the challenges of today's world. A lot of superintendents were trained 10, 20 years ago, and they didn't sign up for this kind of work. But I signed up for this type of work. So I did it, and I was super lucky that I got my first choice job in the Anchorage school district. Even though Alaska is really far away from Texas, I knew I wanted to work in a large, diverse district with a great community with a ton of issues that we needed to fix and solve. There is a lot of opportunity to improve reading proficiency, math. I wanted to help more students graduate from ASD and enter the career field in well-paying jobs or going off to fantastic colleges. There's just so much that we can do. Really, the sky is the limit for the Anchorage School District. And I was very humbled to get the job a couple of years ago. And I packed all of my things into just 1 or 2 suitcases, and I came up here by myself, and we're going into year 3, and it's going well.
Okay, and did you ever have a peer that inspired you the way you had your teacher that inspired you?
Oh, yeah. So I kind of make it kind of a quirky habit where everybody that I'm very close with, whether they're a friend or a coworker or somebody I work with, I try to figure out what is their best quality, and I try to practice that quality in myself. So for example, I can be a very introverted person. It started out as my being a really shy middle schooler, and then when you become an adult, you just prefer to have your quiet time. I definitely still do to this day. But I met a lot of friends that were more outgoing, who really liked trying new things and being more social, and I would learn from them, and I'd figure out, what is this all about? And I learned to, I guess, kind of simulate being more social, and I benefited a lot from that. I've also met people who have really interesting hobbies or really interesting passions and interests, and I learn more about them, and I try to figure out, what's my passion and interests? I meet a lot of people that inspire me because they're so into, let's say, I met one person that's really into tornadoes. He's so into tornadoes that he actually goes and chases them, which I think is really crazy. I would never do that. To those of you listening, please do not chase a tornado. However, I learned what fascinates me, and I took on some really nerdy habits myself. I don't speak too many other foreign languages other than English and some Spanish I took in school. But I started learning computer programming languages for fun. I'm learning more about foreign affairs and other little niche topics just to make myself a better person. I've met some other people that are really compassionate and just really empathetic, and they go out and they volunteer and figure out ways to help people because they realize that some problems are much bigger than ourselves and we need to be selfless and give back. And I've definitely taken their lead as well. So yeah, in so many different ways, I've tried to take the best from everybody that I'm really close with and try to improve myself accordingly. That's a great question. So here's my question for you, Suzie. Let's flip the tables. So what would you say you're most excited about with regards to middle school, and what's something that maybe you're a little nervous about or have questions about?
That's a great question. I'm really excited to go into middle school because I think there's a lot of new people you get to meet in middle school. And I'm really excited because I went to a Korean charter school, which is such a great school. But I believe Romig's going to have over 1,000 kids, and Aquarian had around 300, 400 kids, which was still really nice because you knew a lot of people, but I think it'll be really nice to go to a big school. But using that same topic and flipping it, it's a little nerve-wracking to have that many people at once because you kind of have to go to all these classes, and we don't transition as much in elementary school, and I think it'll be difficult to go from class to class to class. But I think once we figure it out, it'll be great.
Mm-hmm. That's great, Suzie, and I definitely encourage you to find your Aquarian friends at Romig and hang out with them for a little bit and invite new friends from different schools, and you're going to learn a lot and you'll love it. It's a big school, but there are many, many communities within Romig, so I'm super proud of you. You're going to do very well.
Great. Well, thank you for doing this interview, and thank you for watching. This has been the ASD Shine Bright podcast.